The message arrived at 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was already awake. Sleep had become a stranger to her over the past 3 years, ever since the Creth Dominion had begun burning human colonies along the border. She had learned to function on coffee, determination, and cold fury hidden behind diplomatic smiles. She read the summons twice. Then, she read it a third time, just to make sure she understood it correctly. The Council of 12 Species was demanding humanity's presence at peace negotiations. Not requesting, not inviting, demanding. Elena set down her tablet and walked to the window of her office in Geneva. The city glittered below her, rebuilt after the orbital strike that had killed 60,000 people 7 years ago. The Creth had called it a warning shot. The Council had called it regrettable, but understandable given human provocation. Human provocation. They had existed. That was their crime. They had spread too fast, colonized too many worlds, bred too quickly. The older species of the galaxy looked at humanity and saw weeds growing in their garden. Now they wanted peace. Or rather, they wanted surrender, with a prettier name. Elena picked up her communicator and called Commander David Okonkwo, her chief military advisor. He answered on the second ring, his dark face appearing on the screen with alert eyes despite the hour. "You saw it," she said. "It was not a question. I saw it. The Council wants us at Galactic Concord Station in 6 days. They've already written the terms. Did you see them?" "I did." His voice was flat. "They want us to give up 4 colony worlds, pay reparations in titanium and rare earth elements for the next 50 years, and accept mentorship status under the Villani hegemony." Mentorship, Elena repeated. The word tasted like ash. "They want to put a leash on us. They want to make sure we never become a threat to their comfortable little hierarchy." Elena thought about the 60,000 dead in Geneva. She thought about the colony of New Brisbane, where the Creth had tested a biological weapon that killed every human over the age of 12. She thought about 3 years of desperate fighting, of young men and women dying in the black void between stars, of messages she had sent to grieving families. "We go," she said. "We listen to what they have to say. And then, we show them what humanity really is." Okonkwo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Operation Prometheus? Tell the Admiral we're on schedule. 6 days is perfect." She ended the call and looked out at the city again. Somewhere out there, hidden in asteroid belts and dark moons and the empty spaces between stars, humanity had been building. For 3 years, while they fought and bled and died, they had also been preparing. The Council thought humans were desperate. They thought humans were weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Galactic Concord Station hung in neutral space like a great silver wheel, rotating slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. It was ancient beyond human understanding, built by species that had gone extinct before Earth's dinosaurs had evolved. Now it served as the meeting place for the galaxy's great powers. Elena's ship docked at Port 17, a slot reserved for minor species and petitioners. The insult was intentional. She noted it and said nothing. Her delegation was small. Herself, Commander Okonkwo, 2 junior diplomats, and 4 security officers. They wore formal dress uniforms, black with silver trim, and walked with their heads high through corridors that hummed with quiet alien conversation. The other species watched them pass. The Villani, tall and graceful, with skin like polished copper, looked down their long noses with expressions of mild distaste. The Torani, short and stocky beings covered in gray fur, whispered among themselves. The Meshi, whose bodies were mostly water contained in transparent membranes, rippled with colors that Elena had learned to read as curiosity mixed with pity. No one spoke to them. No one offered greeting or welcome. Humanity was here to accept its punishment, and everyone knew it. The council chamber was a vast circular room at the station's core. 12 platforms rose from the floor like the petals of a flower, each one occupied by the representative of a council species. At the center, on a raised dais, sat High Arbiter Sylveth. Elena had studied images of the Arbiter, but seeing him in person was different. He was insectoid, his body covered in a hard shell of iridescent blue-black. His head was dominated by compound eyes that reflected the light in thousands of tiny facets. 4 arms folded across his chest, and his mandibles clicked softly as he watched the human delegation enter. He was 800 years old. He had arbitrated disputes between species when humanity was still fighting with swords and riding horses. To him, humans were barely more than clever animals who had somehow stumbled into space. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said. His voice was surprisingly smooth, translated through the universal system into clear English. "You have answered the Council's summons." "This is noted, High Arbiter," Elena replied with a slight bow. "Humanity is honored by the Council's attention." The words were formal and empty. Everyone in the room knew it. "Be seated," Sylveth said, gesturing to a small platform at the edge of the chamber, lower than all the others. "We have much to discuss." Elena sat. Her delegation arranged themselves behind her. She kept her face calm and her hands still, though, inside her heart, was beating fast. General Vrax of the Creth Dominion leaned forward on his platform. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled body covered in ceremonial armor that did nothing to hide the muscles beneath. His eyes were yellow and slitted, and when he opened his mouth, rows of sharp teeth gleamed. "The human," he growled. "I smell fear." "You smell coffee," Elena replied evenly. "I haven't slept in 2 days. But I assure you, General, fear is not what keeps me awake." A few of the council members made sounds that might have been laughter. Vrax's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. High Arbiter Sylveth raised one arm for silence. "We are not here for verbal sparring. We are here to end a conflict that has destabilized an entire sector of the galaxy. The Council has prepared terms for peace. Ambassador Vasquez, you will listen." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a star map of the contested region. Elena recognized every system. She had memorized them all, along with the names of every human who had died defending them. "The terms are as follows," Sylveth continued. "First, the United Earth Confederacy will cede the colony worlds of New Brisbane, Hawking's Landing, Meridian, and Prosperity to the Creth Dominion, as compensation for the conflict." Elena felt Okonkwo stiffen behind her. New Brisbane, where the Creth had tested their bioweapon. They wanted humanity to give them the graveyard they had created. "Second," the Arbiter went on, "the United Earth Confederacy will pay reparations to the Creth Dominion in the form of refined titanium and rare earth elements. The amount will be determined by a council committee, payable over a period of 50 standard years. 50 years. 2 generations of humanity, working to pay for the privilege of being attacked. Third, the United Earth Confederacy will accept mentorship status under the Villani hegemony. All human military vessels will be limited in number and capability, according to guidelines established by the Villani. Human expansion will be subject to Villani approval. Human technology development will be monitored and regulated. A leash. A cage. An end to everything humanity had fought for since first reaching the stars. These terms, Sylveth concluded, are the result of extensive negotiation. The Creth Dominion originally demanded the complete dissolution of the United Earth Confederacy and the resettlement of all humans to a single system. The Council has moderated these demands significantly. You should be grateful. Grateful. The word echoed in Elena's mind. She looked around the chamber at the faces of the Council representatives. The Villani were nodding in approval. The Torani seemed uncomfortable, but said nothing. The Meshi rippled with colors she couldn't read, and the Creth. General Vrax was watching her with naked hunger. He wanted her to argue. He wanted an excuse. "High Arbiter," Elena said, keeping her voice steady. May I ask a question? You may. Who wrote these terms? Sylveth's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. The Council. Of course. In consultation with both parties. Both parties, Elena repeated. But I see no human representative among your council. I received no communication asking for human input on these negotiations. The first I learned of these terms was when I read them on my ship an hour ago. Young species rarely understand what is best for them, Sylveth replied. The Council has many centuries of experience in resolving conflicts. We know what is fair. Fair. Elena stood. It was a breach of protocol. Several council members murmured in surprise. You call these terms fair. Sit down, Ambassador. New Brisbane. Elena said, ignoring him. 15 million humans lived there. The Creth released a biological agent that killed everyone over the age of 12. 11 million people died in 3 days. The survivors, children all of them, were evacuated on ships that were hunted by Creth fighters the entire way. We lost another 2 million in the evacuation. That is regrettable, Sylveth said. But war is, you want us to give that world to the Creth, to the people who murdered 13 million of us, as compensation. Elena's voice did not waver. And you call this fair? General Vrax laughed. It was an ugly sound. Your dead are your own fault, human. If you had surrendered when you should have, they would still be alive. If you had stayed in your own little corner of space instead of spreading like a disease. General, Sylveth interrupted, that is enough. No. Vrax snarled. It is not enough. It will never be enough. These creatures breed like vermin. They expand like a plague. In another century, they will outnumber all of us combined. The Council should have let me finish them when I had the chance. Elena looked at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned back to Sylveth. Is this the Council's view? She asked quietly. That humanity is a plague to be contained? The Arbiter hesitated. It was a small hesitation, barely noticeable, but Elena saw it. She saw the flicker of agreement in his compound eyes before he spoke. The Council believes that younger species require guidance, he said carefully. Humanity has expanded rapidly, perhaps too rapidly. These terms are designed to ensure stability for all species. Stability, Elena said. She looked around the chamber one more time. She saw the Villani and their elegant contempt. She saw the Torani, who avoided her eyes. She saw the Creth General, with his teeth and his hunger. And she saw the High Arbiter, 800 years old, who saw humanity as weeds to be trimmed. High Arbiter, she said, I request a recess. I need time to consult with my government. Sylveth's mandibles clicked. How much time? 3 hours. Granted. The Council will reconvene at the appropriate time. Use your hours wisely, Ambassador. The Council does not appreciate delays. Elena bowed. She turned and walked toward the exit, her delegation following behind her. She could feel every eye in the chamber on her back. Just before she reached the door, General Vrax called out, Run back to your masters, little human. Beg them to save you. It will make no difference. You have lost. You simply haven't accepted it yet. Elena paused. She turned her head slightly, just enough to see the Creth General from the corner of her eye. General, she said softly, in 3 hours, you will learn something important about humanity. And what is that? She smiled. It was the first genuine expression she had allowed herself since entering the chamber. We are very, very patient. She walked out, and the door closed behind her. In the private chambers assigned to the human delegation, Elena finally let out the breath she had been holding. Her hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists until the shaking stopped. That went well, Okonkwo said dryly. It went exactly as expected. Elena moved to the secure communication terminal. They see us as children at best, and vermin at worst. They've already decided our fate. These negotiations are theater. So what do we do? Elena activated the terminal. A few moments later, a face appeared on the screen. Admiral Chen Wei, commander of the United Earth Navy, looked out at her with eyes that held no warmth. "Ambassador," he said, "I've been waiting for your call. They want 4 colonies, 50 years of reparations, and Villani control over our military and expansion," Elena reported. The Arbiter called it mercy. Mercy. The Admiral's voice was flat. "I see. Is Prometheus ready? It has been ready for 6 months. We've just been waiting for the right moment." Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were hard. "The right moment is now. Execute the operation." "Understood." The Admiral paused. "Ambassador, once we do this, there's no going back. I know. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." "That," Elena said, "is exactly the point." She ended the call and turned to face her delegation. They were watching her with expressions that mixed fear with something else. Something that looked like hope. "Get some rest if you can," she told them. "In 3 hours, we're going to change history." She moved to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, human ships were moving. Thousands of them. Ships that the Council didn't know existed. Ships that would soon appear in places they were never supposed to be. The galaxy thought humanity was a young species, weak and desperate and easy to control. They were about to learn the truth. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for a very long time, and they were done being patient. The 3 hours passed slowly. Elena did not sleep. She sat in the small chamber assigned to the human delegation and reviewed data on a tablet, scrolling through reports and numbers that she had memorized long ago. Behind her, Commander Okonkwo paced back and forth like a caged animal. "Stop," she said finally. "You're making me nervous. I can't help it." He ran a hand over his shaved head. "In less than an hour, either we change everything, or we start a war we can't win. We're already in a war we can't win. At least, that's what they think." Elena set down her tablet. "David, tell me about your grandfather." Okonkwo blinked at the sudden change of subject. "My grandfather? Why? Humor me." He sighed and stopped pacing. "He was a soldier. Fought in the African Union Defense Force before the unification. He used to tell me stories about the old days, before we reached the stars. About how Africa was always underestimated. How the great powers would come and take what they wanted, assuming the people there were too weak or too primitive to stop them." "And what did your grandfather say about that?" A smile crossed Okonkwo's face. "He said that the wise man lets his enemy think he is a fool. He said that patience is a weapon sharper than any blade. Your grandfather was a smart man." "He was." He also said something else. Okonkwo's smile faded. "He said that when the time comes to show your true strength, you must show all of it. Holding back is just another form of weakness." Elena nodded slowly. "That's what we're about to do. No more holding back. No more pretending to be less than we are." A soft chime sounded. A message appeared on the communication terminal. Elena read it and felt her heart skip. "Prometheus is complete," she said quietly. "Admiral Chen reports that all 12 battle groups have successfully transitioned." Okonkwo let out a breath. So it worked. The fold space interdiction bypass actually worked. It worked. Elena stood and straightened her uniform. The Kreth homeworld currently has 47,000 human warships in orbit. They appeared 6 minutes ago. Our ships have taken defensive positions but have made no hostile moves. 47,000. Okonkwo shook his head in disbelief. "When I first heard the numbers from the shipyards, I thought it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake. It was the plan." Elena looked at her reflection in the dark window. "For 3 years, the Council thought we were fighting for survival. They saw our border fleets getting pushed back. They saw our colonies burning. They saw exactly what we wanted them to see. A desperate young species barely holding on. Yes. And while they watched that show, we were building. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts. Factory stations in the gas giants of uninhabited systems. Mining operations in the dark space between stars where no one ever looks. She turned to face him. We're not the weak little species they think we are, David. We haven't been for a long time. Why didn't we fight back sooner? Why let so many people die? It was the question Elena had asked herself every night for 3 years. The question that kept her awake. The question that she knew would haunt her until the day she died. Because if we had fought back with our full strength immediately, the Council would have united against us. 12 species. All of them older and more established than us. We would have been crushed. She paused. But if we appeared weak, if we appeared desperate, they would underestimate us. They would write their unfair treaties and make their arrogant demands, convinced that we had no choice but to accept. And then we show them the truth. And then we show them the truth. Not in a battle, but at a negotiating table. With 47,000 ships as our argument. Elena's eyes were hard. We needed them to be confident. We needed them to feel safe in their superiority. Only then could we prove, beyond any doubt, that they were wrong. Another chime. This one was the summons to return to the council chamber. It's time, Elena said. She gathered her tablet and walked toward the door. Are you ready? Okonkwo fell into step beside her. I've been ready for 3 years. The walk back to the council chamber felt different. Elena noticed the other species watching them with the same dismissive curiosity as before. But now she saw it differently. They looked at her delegation and saw a defeated enemy coming to accept surrender. They had no idea what was about to happen. The doors to the chamber opened. Elena walked in with her head high and her steps steady. She crossed to the small platform, assigned to humanity, and stood before it. She did not sit down. High Arbiter Sylveth's compound eyes fixed on her. Ambassador Vasquez, you have consulted with your government? I have. And you are prepared to accept the council's terms? I am prepared to respond to them. A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Sylveth's mandibles clicked. Respond? The terms are not a proposal, Ambassador. They are the council's decision. Your only choice is acceptance. I understand that is what you believe. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting every eye that would meet hers. I am here to correct that misunderstanding. General Vrax leaned forward on his platform, his yellow eyes gleaming. The human speaks of misunderstanding. Perhaps she doesn't understand the position she is in. Perhaps she needs a demonstration. No, General. You are the one who needs a demonstration. Elena's voice was calm and clear. The United Earth Confederacy rejects the Council's terms. All of them. General. General. Silence fell over the chamber. It was not the silence of shock. It was the silence before a storm. Sylveth spoke carefully. Ambassador, perhaps you do not fully grasp the situation. The Creeth Dominion has been winning this war. Your fleets are depleted. Your colonies are falling. You have no position from which to negotiate. You are correct that the Creeth have been winning the border war, Elena agreed. But the border war was not the real war. Explain yourself. Elena activated her tablet. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, replacing the star map that had been there before. It showed a star system that every being in the room recognized immediately, the Creth home system, and surrounding the Creth homeworld, arranged in perfect defensive formations, were ships. Human ships. Thousands upon thousands of them. The chamber erupted. General Vrax roared and lunged to his feet. Lies! This is a fabrication! Check your own sensor networks, General. Elena's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Check the reports from your homeworld. This image is 6 minutes old. As we speak, 47,000 human warships are maintaining position around your planet. The Creeth general was already communicating frantically with his aides. Other council members were doing the same. The Villani representative had turned a shade of pale copper that Elena suspected meant terror. The Torani were speaking rapidly among themselves in their own language. High Arbiter Sylveth raised all four of his arms. Silence. The chamber slowly quieted. Sylveth's compound eyes were fixed on Elena with an intensity that might have frightened her an hour ago. Now it just made her feel tired. "Explain," he said. "How is this possible? 3 years ago, when the Creth first attacked our colonies, we had a choice," Elena replied. "We could commit everything to the border war and try to hold the line, or we could accept losses in the short term while preparing for something much larger." She gestured, and the display changed. Now it showed dozens of locations scattered across the galaxy. Asteroid belts, moons of gas giants, dark regions between star systems, hidden shipyards, she continued, factory stations, mining operations. "We built them in places no one would think to look, because no one expected us to look there. The Council and the Creth were watching our border fleets. They weren't watching the dark." "Impossible," one of the Villani said. "The industrial capacity required. The resources. Humanity has 40 worlds," Elena said. 28 billion people. And when we set our minds to something, we build fast. Very fast. Your intelligence services saw what they expected to see. A desperate young species fighting above its weight. They never considered that we might be fighting below it. General Vrax had finished communicating with his homeworld. His scales had gone from dark green to almost white. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. "The reports are confirmed. Human ships, thousands of them. They appeared without warning. Our defensive grids never detected their approach. Because we didn't approach," Elena said. "We transitioned directly through fold space." The chamber went absolutely silent. Fold space interdiction was the foundation of Council power. It was the technology that allowed them to control the galaxy. Any species that threatened them could be cut off from faster-than-light travel, trapped in normal space where their ships would take decades to cross distances that others covered in hours. It was supposed to be unbreakable. "That's impossible," Sylveth said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Fold space interdiction has been secure for 10,000 years. No species has ever bypassed it. Until now," Elena met his gaze steadily. "I won't explain how we did it. That's our secret to keep. But I will tell you what it means." She gestured, and the display changed again. Now it showed the entire galaxy, with human positions marked in blue. They were everywhere. Not just around the Creth homeworld, but spread throughout Council space. As of 6 hours ago, we deployed battle groups to 12 strategic locations. The Creth homeworld, the Villani core systems, the Council's main communication hubs, the central shipyards of 7 Council species. Elena's voice was hard. "We can appear anywhere we want, whenever we want, regardless of your interdiction fields. The technology that has kept you in power for 10,000 years no longer works against us." General Vrax made a sound that was half roar, half scream. He leaped from his platform and charged toward Elena, his claws extended, his teeth bared. Council guards moved to intercept him. 4 of them, heavily armed, managed to stop his charge barely 2 meters from where Elena stood. She did not move. She did not flinch. She simply watched as the Creth general struggled against those holding him. "Let me go," Vrax snarled. "Let me kill her. 1 human life for the insult to my people." "1 human life?" Elena shook her head. "General, look at me. Do I look like someone afraid to die?" He stopped, struggling. His yellow eyes fixed on her face, searching for something. Fear. Desperation. Anything that would give him power over her. He found nothing but calm determination. "We're not here to threaten genocide," Elena continued. "We're not like you. Our ships have strict orders not to fire unless fired upon. They will hold their positions and wait. No Creth civilians will be harmed. No infrastructure will be destroyed. We don't want to rule your world. We just want you to understand something very important." "What?" The word came out as a hiss, The war ends on equal terms, or it doesn't end at all. Elena stepped closer to him, close enough to see her reflection in his slitted eyes. For 3 years, you've burned our colonies and killed our people. You've called us vermin and plague and disease. You've talked about our extinction like it was a matter of time. She paused, letting the words sink in. We could do the same to you right now. 47,000 ships with weapons pointed at your world. We could give the order and watch everything you love turn to ash. Vrax's scales had gone completely white. But we won't, Elena said. Because we're not monsters. We're not you. She stepped back and addressed the whole chamber. Here are our terms. Immediate and total ceasefire. Return of all occupied human territories, including New Brisbane. A formal seat for humanity on this council, not as a junior member, not under anyone's mentorship, but as a full and equal partner. High Arbiter Sylveth found his voice. Those terms are unprecedented. So is our position. The council does not negotiate under duress. Neither does humanity. Yet here we both are. The Arbiter looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. Elena saw fear in their eyes. Fear and something else. Calculation. They were trying to figure out how to respond to a situation they had never imagined possible. We must discuss this, Sylveth said finally. The council needs time to consider. You have had 3 years to consider, Elena interrupted. You have had 3 years to treat humanity fairly. Instead, you wrote terms that would have made us slaves. You called it mercy. She shook her head. The time for consideration is over. Accept our terms or reject them. But understand that if you reject them, we will withdraw from these talks, and our ships will remain exactly where they are. For how long? For as long as it takes. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversation. Council members leaned toward each other, speaking in low voices. Elena waited. Finally, Sylveth turned back to her. The matter of equal standing on the council is complex. There are procedures, traditions. The council has existed for millennia. I don't care about your traditions. Elena's voice was flat. I care about my people. I care about the 13 million dead on New Brisbane. I care about every colony you let the Creeth burn while you watched and did nothing. We attempted to mediate. You attempted to manage us, to control us, to keep us in our place. She shook her head. We're done being managed. We're done being controlled. Either you accept us as equals, or we go our own way. Those are your only options. Sylveth was silent for a long moment. His compound eyes reflected the light of the holographic display, where human ships still surrounded the Creth homeworld. You ask too much, he said at last. Elena gathered her tablet. She turned and walked toward the door. Ambassador, Sylveth called. You cannot simply leave. Elena paused at the threshold. She did not turn around. Watch us. If you walk out now, there will be consequences. Now she did turn. She looked back at the council chamber, at the Arbiter on his raised platform, at General Vrax, still held by guards, at the representatives of 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. High Arbiter, she said quietly. For 3 years, you believed that humanity was desperate. You believed we had no options. You believed you could dictate terms to us, and we would have no choice but to accept. She paused. You were wrong about all of it. And the longer you refuse to accept that, the worse your situation becomes. She turned away. Thanks for watching. End quote. When you're ready to treat us as what we are, not what you wish we were, you know how to reach us. She walked out. The doors closed behind her, and in the council chamber, surrounded by chaos and confusion and fear, High Arbiter Sylveth slowly began to realize the magnitude of his mistake. The corridor outside the council chamber was empty. Elena walked in silence, her footsteps echoing against the ancient walls. Behind her, Commander Okonkwo and the rest of the delegation followed. No one spoke. The weight of what they had just done pressed down on all of them. They had done it. They had actually done it. Humanity had walked away from the most powerful political body in the known galaxy. And now they would see what happened next. They were halfway back to their quarters when Okonkwo spoke. "Ambassador, we have company." Elena looked up. 3 figures were approaching from a side corridor. She recognized them immediately. The Torani delegation. Short, stocky beings covered in gray fur, with wide eyes and careful movements. The lead Torani was Ambassador Keth, a veteran diplomat whom Elena had met once before, years ago at a minor trade conference. He raised one hand in a gesture of peace. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said. His voice was soft and cautious. "May we speak?" Elena stopped walking. "Now?" The council session just ended. 18. That is precisely why we must speak now. Keth looked around nervously. "Not here. Your quarters. Please." Elena studied him for a moment. The Torani were not a powerful species by council standards. They had been members for thousands of years, but had never held significant influence. They kept their heads down and stayed out of trouble. Why would they want to talk now? "Very well," she said. "Follow me." In the human quarters, Keth dismissed his own aides and asked if the conversation could be private. Elena sent her junior diplomats to another room, but kept Okonkwo with her. Some conversations required witnesses. "Thank you," Keth said. He sat down heavily on one of the chairs, his fur rippling with colors that Elena had learned meant anxiety. "What I am about to say must not be repeated. If the council learns of this conversation, my species will face severe consequences." "I understand." "No, I don't think you do." Keth leaned forward. "Ambassador, what you did in there. I have served on the council for 60 years. I have never seen anything like it." The arbiter was speechless. General Vrax had to be sedated. Half the representatives were calling for an immediate military response. And the other half? The other half were asking themselves a very important question. Keth's eyes met hers. If humanity could build 47,000 ships without anyone noticing, what else could they build? What else have they already built? Elena said nothing. She let the silence speak for her. "The Torani have been members of the council for 4,000 years. Keth continued. "In all that time, we have followed their rules. We have accepted their guidance. We have been the good, quiet, obedient species that never causes problems." His voice grew bitter. "And do you know what we have received in return? Nothing. We are treated as children, just as humanity is treated. Our suggestions are ignored. Our concerns are dismissed. We exist only to fill a seat and vote the way we are told. I didn't know that. No one does. That is the point. The council presents itself as a partnership of equals. But it is not. It has never been. The real power belongs to the Villani, the Kreeth, the Silvar, and a few others. The rest of us are window dressing." Keth shook his head. "We have accepted this because we had no choice. What could we do? Challenge the council and face interdiction? Watch our ships stranded in normal space while the powerful species do whatever they want? But now you have changed everything." Keth's eyes gleamed with something that looked almost like hope. "You have shown that the council's ultimate weapon is no longer absolute. Ambassador, do you understand what that means?" "We, Kruska." "Ambassador." To me. Elena did understand. She had understood from the moment they developed the bypass technology. But she wanted to hear him say it. "Tell me," she said. "It means that for the first time in 10,000 years, the balance of power can shift. It means that species like the Torani might have options we never had before." Keth paused. "It means that humanity might not be alone." Okonkwo shifted behind Elena. She held up a hand to keep him silent. "Ambassador Keth," she said carefully, "are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I am suggesting nothing officially. Keth stood up. I am simply telling you that when my delegation returns to our homeworld, I will be making a report to our government. That report will include my personal recommendation that the Torani Collective begin exploring closer ties with the United Earth Confederacy. The Council won't like that. The Council can do what they like. But if your interdiction bypass works as you claim, they cannot stop our ships from traveling. They cannot isolate us as they could before. Keth moved toward the door. The galaxy is changing. Ambassador, you have started something today. I don't know where it will end, but I know it cannot be undone. He paused at the door and looked back. The Torani will be watching. We will not be the only ones. Then he was gone. Elena and Okonkwo sat in silence for a long moment. Well, Okonkwo said finally, that was unexpected. No. Elena shook her head. That was exactly what we hoped for. She stood and walked to the window. The stars glittered in the darkness, cold and distant and beautiful. The Council's power has always depended on two things, she said. Fear and control. Fear of what they could do to anyone who opposed them. Control through fold space interdiction that could trap any enemy in normal space forever. And we just broke both. Yes. Fear doesn't work when the enemy has 47,000 ships pointed at your homeworld. Control doesn't work when that enemy can go wherever they want, regardless of your technology. She turned to face him. The Council is about to discover something that human empires learned centuries ago. What's that? Power built on fear is fragile. The moment the fear goes away, so does the power. Elena's smile was thin, but real. The Torani won't be the last to reach out. The Meshi have been chafing under Council restrictions for decades. The Orath Principality has territorial disputes with the Villani that the Council has refused to address. A dozen other species have grievances they've been too afraid to voice. So this isn't just about humanity anymore. It was never just about humanity. We were the spark, but the fuel has been building for centuries. She moved back to her chair and sat down. The question now is what the Council does next. As if on cue, a message appeared on the communication terminal. Elena read it and raised an eyebrow. Speaking of the Council, she said, the Arbiter has requested a private meeting. Just him and me. No aides, no witnesses. That's a terrible idea. Probably. She stood up again. But I'm going to accept it anyway. Ambassador, David, if he wanted to kill me, he could do it whether I accept this meeting or not. He's not requesting a private audience to threaten me. He wants to talk without the other Council members watching. She headed for the door. This is the Arbiter, trying to figure out how to save his position. I want to see how far he's willing to go. My other Council members. The meeting took place in a small chamber near the station's core. It was clearly designed for private conversations. No windows. No recording devices. And walls that probably blocked every kind of surveillance known to galactic science. High Arbiter Sylveth was waiting when Elena arrived. Without the formal setting of the Council chamber, he looked different. Older. Somehow. More tired. Ambassador Vasquez, he said. Thank you for coming. High Arbiter. She sat down across from him. I admit I'm curious. What do you want to discuss that you couldn't discuss in front of the Council? Sylveth was silent for a moment. His compound eyes reflected the soft light of the chamber. Thousands of tiny facets watching her. In 800 years, he said finally, I have never been as wrong about anything as I was about humanity. Elena blinked. Whatever she had expected, it was not that. Go on. When your species first reached the stars, I dismissed you as primitives. When you colonized your first worlds, I saw you as crude expansionists. When you fought the Kreth, I saw a desperate young species fighting above its weight, delaying the inevitable. He shook his head slowly. I saw what I expected to see, what I wanted to see. I never stopped to consider that I might be wrong. The Council has treated every young species the same way. Yes. And for 10,000 years, it has worked. Species that challenged us were broken. Species that accepted our guidance were absorbed into our system. The pattern was so consistent that I came to believe it was natural law. Sylveth's mandibles clicked softly. Today, I learned that it was not natural law. It was simply the absence of anyone strong enough to prove us wrong. And now I must decide what to do. He stood and walked to the wall, running one clawed hand along its surface. General Vrax is demanding immediate military action. The Villani are panicking. The Silvar are already calculating how to profit from the chaos. Half the council wants to destroy humanity before you become too powerful. The other half is wondering if they should switch sides. Number. And what do you want? Sylveth turned to face her. I want to survive. I want the council to survive. I want the galaxy to not collapse into the kind of war that would kill billions. Then accept our terms. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Elena leaned forward. High Arbiter, let me tell you a story. 300 years ago, on Earth, there was a nation called Britain. It was the most powerful nation on the planet. It had colonies on every continent. It controlled trade routes and resources that other nations could only dream of. Its navy ruled the oceans. End quote. I am familiar with human history. Then you know what happened next. Britain's colonies grew restless. They wanted independence, self-determination, the right to control their own futures. Britain could have held on by force for a while longer, but the cost would have been enormous. What did they do? The smart ones recognized reality and let go peacefully. The former colonies became partners instead of subjects. Britain remained influential and prosperous for centuries after its empire ended. Elena paused. The ones who held on too tightly? They lost everything. Their colonies, their wealth, their power, their reputation. They became cautionary tales. Sylveth was silent. You can fight us. Elena continued. You can mobilize the Council's military and try to destroy humanity. Maybe you'll succeed, but you'll lose millions of lives in the process. Other species will see what you're willing to do to maintain control, and they'll start wondering if they're next. The alliance you've built over 10,000 years will crack and crumble. Or you can accept that the galaxy is changing. You can bring humanity into the Council as equals. You can show the other species that there's room for new voices at the table. She spread her hands. It's not the end of the Council. It's evolution. The Council becomes something better, something more inclusive, something that can survive the next 10,000 years instead of collapsing under its own weight. You make it sound simple. I never said it was simple. I said it was the only choice that doesn't end in disaster. Sylveth studied her for a long moment. You planned this. All of it. You didn't just build those ships. You thought through every step, every response, every possible outcome. We had 3 years. No. He shook his head. This kind of planning takes longer than 3 years. You were thinking about this before the war even started, weren't you? Before the Creeth attacked. Elena met his gaze steadily. Humanity has been underestimated by stronger powers since we first climbed down from the trees. We've learned that the best way to survive is to prepare for trouble before trouble arrives. And if the trouble never arrives, then we have preparations we don't need. That's better than needing preparations we don't have. Sylveth let out a sound that might have been a sigh. I cannot convince the Council to accept your terms. Not all of them. Not immediately. What can you convince them to do? A temporary ceasefire while negotiations continue. The Creeth will hate it, but they fear your ships more than they hate delay. Preliminary discussions about expanding the Council to include new members, with humanity as the first candidate. He paused. It would take time. Months. Perhaps years. But it would be a path forward. That's not enough. It is what I can offer. Elena stood. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Ambassador, please. Sylveth raised a hand. I am trying to find a solution. No. You're trying to delay. You're hoping that if you stretch this out long enough, something will change. Our technology will fail. Our people will lose patience. Some other crisis will distract us. She shook her head. It won't work. Then what do you want from me? I want you to go back to the council and tell them the truth. Tell them that the galaxy has changed. Tell them that humanity is not going to accept a slow process of maybe someday being treated fairly. Tell them that they have a choice. Embrace change now, or watch everything they've built fall apart. She walked to the door and paused. High Arbiter, in the history I told you about, the nations that survived were the ones that recognized reality and adapted. The ones that didn't. She shrugged. They became history lessons for other people's children. Is that a threat? No, it's an observation. She opened the door. We're leaving the station. Our ships will remain in position around the Creth homeworld and the other locations. When the Council is ready to give us a real answer, not a delay tactic, you know how to reach us. She walked out, leaving the High Arbiter alone with his thoughts. 3 hours later, the human delegation boarded their ship and departed from Galactic Concord Station. They left behind a council in chaos. An arbiter who was questioning everything he believed, and a galaxy that would never be the same. Elena stood at the window of her ship as the station grew smaller in the distance. Somewhere out there, 47,000 human warships waited in silent readiness. Somewhere else, species like the Tyranni were having quiet conversations about the future. It wasn't over. It was barely beginning. There would be more negotiations, more conflicts, more moments where everything hung in the balance. But for the first time in human history, they were not negotiating from weakness. They were not begging for scraps from the Council's table. They were standing as equals, demanding to be treated as equals, and backing up those demands with the power to enforce them. Elena thought about all the people who had died to bring them to this moment. The colonists on New Brisbane, the soldiers on the border, the civilians in Geneva, and a dozen other cities that had been scarred by Creth attacks. She couldn't bring them back. She couldn't undo the pain and the loss. But she could make sure their deaths meant something. She could build a future where humanity would never be dismissed as children again. Ambassador. Okonkwo appeared beside her. Message from Admiral Chen. He wants to know if the operation was successful. Elena looked at the stars. So many of them. So much space. Still to explore. Still to settle. Still to make their own. Tell him yes, she said. Tell him the operation was successful. And tell him to prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2? She turned to face him. The Council will come around eventually. They don't have a choice. But in the meantime, we need to build alliances with the species who want to support us. The Tyranni, the Meshi, the Oroth, anyone else who's tired of being treated as second-class members of their own galaxy. You want to build a rival power bloc. I want to build a coalition of equals. Something the Council has never been and never will be. She smiled, and for the first time in days, there was real warmth in it. The galaxy is changing, David. We started the change. Now, we need to guide it. Okonkwo nodded slowly. And if the Council tries to stop us? Elena's smile faded. Then they'll learn what happens when you underestimate humanity. She turned back to the window. The stars were waiting. The Council chamber had never been so quiet. High Arbiter Sylveth stood at the center of the room, surrounded by the empty platforms of the other Council members. The session had ended hours ago, but he had remained behind. He needed time to think, time to understand how everything had gone so wrong. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained order in the galaxy. They had arbitrated disputes. They had guided younger species. They had prevented wars that might have destroyed civilizations. And in all that time, they had never faced a challenge like this. Humanity. Such a young species. Such a brief history. They had only been in space for 5 centuries. A mere heartbeat compared to the ages the Council races had existed. How had they accomplished so much? in so little time. The doors opened behind him. Sylveth did not turn around. "I wondered how long it would take you to come," he said. Villani Ambassador Tethris walked into the chamber. She was tall and elegant, her copper skin gleaming in the soft light. The Villani were the oldest members of the council, the founders of the alliance that had shaped galactic politics for millennia. Tethris herself was nearly as old as Sylveth, and just as experienced in the ways of power. "You spoke with the human ambassador privately," she said. "I did. And what did you learn?" Sylveth finally turned to face her. "I learned that we have made a terrible mistake." Tethris's expression did not change. "Elaborate." "We underestimated them. Not just their military capability, but their intelligence, their planning, their patience." He walked slowly across the chamber. "For 3 years, we watched them fight the Creth along the border. We saw them losing ground, losing colonies, losing ships. We congratulated ourselves on having contained another aggressive young species. And all along, they were building. Not just ships, but a strategy. They knew this moment would come. They knew we would summon them here and dictate terms. They knew exactly how we would behave, because they had studied us." Sylveth's mandibles clicked. "Ambassador Vasquez told me that humanity has been underestimated by stronger powers since they first evolved. She said they've learned to prepare for trouble before trouble arrives. Pretty words. True words." He stopped walking and faced her directly. "Tethris, I have been the High Arbiter for 600 years. In all that time, I have never seen a species plan so far ahead, execute so precisely, or maintain such discipline under pressure." The human ambassador stood in this chamber with the fate of her entire species at stake, and she did not flinch. She did not beg. She made demands and walked out when we refused them, because she knew she held the stronger position. Yes, but she only held that position because they had spent years preparing for it. Years of sacrifice. Years of letting their people die on the border while they built their secret fleet. Sylveth shook his head. "That takes a kind of cold calculation that I did not believe young species were capable of." Tethris was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. "The other council members are frightened. General Vrax is demanding that we mobilize everything we have and destroy the humans before they become too powerful. The Sylvar are suggesting we negotiate a separate peace and abandon the Creth to their fate. The Meshi have withdrawn from all discussions and won't respond to messages. And the Villani? The Villani are doing what we always do. We are calculating. Calculating what? Whether it is better to fight humanity now, while we still have numerical superiority, or to accommodate them and hope they become a stabilizing force rather than a destabilizing one." She paused. "The mathematics are not encouraging either way." Sylveth moved to one of the viewing screens that lined the chamber. He activated it, and the image of the Creth homeworld appeared. The human ships were still there. Thousands of them, floating in perfect formation around the planet. They had not moved. They had not threatened. They were simply present, a reminder of what humanity could do if provoked. "What are our military options?" he asked. "Limited." Tethris joined him at the screen. "Our combined fleets outnumber the humans approximately 3-1, but their ships are concentrated while ours are scattered across hundreds of systems. To assemble a force capable of challenging them, we would need months. And during those months, they could strike anywhere. Our shipyards, our communication hubs, our homeworlds." She gestured at the screen. "They've already demonstrated that they can bypass our interdiction technology. We cannot trap them. We cannot predict where they will appear. Every strategic assumption we have made for the past 10,000 years is now obsolete. So a military solution is not viable. A military solution is suicide." Tethris's voice was flat. "If we attack them, they will not wait for us to assemble our forces. They will strike first, and they will strike hard. By the time we recover, the war will be over, and we will have lost. Then we must negotiate. Must we? Tethris turned to face him. There is another option. Which is? We accept their terms. All of them. We give them a seat on the council. Equal standing. Everything they asked for. She paused. And then we work to undermine them from within, co-opt their allies, infiltrate their society, find weaknesses we can exploit. It will take decades, perhaps centuries, but eventually, we will have opportunities they cannot foresee. Sylveth considered this. It was a very Villani solution. Appear to capitulate while planning long-term revenge. It had worked before, against other species who had briefly threatened council dominance. No, he said finally. No? Think about what they just did. He gestured at the screen again. They let themselves appear weak for 3 years. They let their people die. They endured attacks and losses and humiliation, all so that they could be in a position of strength at this exact moment. His voice hardened. If they were willing to sacrifice that much for a single diplomatic victory, what do you think they'll sacrifice to protect that victory? Tethris frowned. You think they'll be watching for treachery? I think they invented treachery. I think they've been practicing it on each other for their entire history. Every trick we know, they know better. Every scheme we devise, they've probably already considered and planned countermeasures for. Sylveth shook his head. We cannot outmaneuver them. We cannot outplan them. Our only options are to fight them and lose, or to genuinely accept them as equals and hope they're sincere about wanting partnership rather than domination. That's a significant gamble. Yes. But it's the only gamble that doesn't end with the council destroyed. 17. The doors opened again. This time it was a Torani aide, small and nervous-looking. High Arbiter, the aide said. Developments. What kind of developments? The Torani Collective has announced that they are opening direct diplomatic channels with the United Earth Confederacy. They are not leaving the council, but they are establishing independent relations. The aide swallowed. The Meshi Combine has made a similar announcement, and the Oreth Principality has issued a formal statement supporting human membership on the council. Sylveth closed his eyes. So it was beginning. How many? He asked quietly. How many species have made similar statements? As of the last hour? 7. But more are expected. 7. 7 species breaking ranks, reaching out to humanity, positioning themselves for a future where the Council was no longer the only power in the galaxy, and the humans had only left the station a few hours ago. This is not just about military power, Sylveth murmured. This is about the idea of humanity. The idea that the Council can be challenged, that the old order can change. An idea can be more dangerous than any fleet, Tethris agreed. You cannot shoot an idea. You cannot blockade it. You can only answer it with a better idea, or watch it spread. Then we need a better idea. Do we have one? Sylveth thought about his conversation with Ambassador Vasquez. He thought about the history she had told him, about the human nation that had learned to let go of its colonies and survived, while others had held on too tightly and been destroyed. Perhaps, he said slowly. Perhaps we do. 2 days later, the Council held an emergency session. All 12 members were present, either in person or by holographic projection. The chamber crackled with tension. General Vrax spoke first, as everyone knew he would. The Kreth Dominion demands action, he growled. Human warships surround our homeworld. Our civilians live in fear. Our honor has been insulted beyond measure. The Council must respond with force, or the Dominion will take matters into its own hands. Take matters into your own hands? The Silvar representative, a being of crystalline structure that refracted light in rainbow patterns, made a sound like breaking glass. You would attack 47,000 warships with your local defense forces? That is not courage. That is stupidity. The Silvar know nothing of courage. The Silvar know basic mathematics. 300 ships against 47,000 is not a battle. It is a massacre. Enough. Sylveth raised his arms for silence. We are not here to insult each other. We are here to decide the future of the Council. The future of the Council is clear, said the Villani representative. We either maintain our authority, or we lose it. The humans have challenged us. If we back down, every young species in the galaxy will see us as weak. They already see us as weak. This came from the Torani ambassador, who had been silent until now. Heads turned toward him. Our authority was based on fold space interdiction. The humans have broken it. Whether we admit it publicly or not, everyone knows that the ultimate threat we held over them is gone. The Torani forget their place, Vrax snarled. No, General. The Torani remember it. We have been in our place for 4,000 years. We have been quiet and obedient and useful. Ambassador Keth stood, a rare breach of protocol, and we have watched the Council dismiss species after species as children and primitives and juveniles, never stopping to wonder if those species might grow up. What is your point? My point is that humanity has grown up. They have done it faster than any species in galactic history, but they have done it nonetheless. And now we must decide. Do we treat them as the adults they have proven themselves to be? Or do we continue pretending they are children and suffer the consequences? Silence fell over the chamber. Sylveth watched the faces of the Council members. He saw fear, anger, calculation, and something else. Doubt. For the first time in their long lives, the masters of the galaxy were doubting themselves. The Torani have already made their choice, Vrax said. You have opened diplomatic channels with the humans behind our backs. We have. As have the Meshi, the Orath, and 4 other species. More will follow. Keth sat back down. The question is, whether the Council will lead this change, or be swept away by it. Sylveth stood. The chamber fell silent. I have thought carefully about our situation, he said. I have consulted with Ambassador Tethris and others. I have reviewed our military options, our political options, and our historical precedents, and I have come to a conclusion. He paused, looking around the chamber. We were wrong about humanity. We were wrong to dismiss them. We were wrong to let the Creth attack them without consequence. We were wrong to summon them here and present terms that treated them as a conquered people when they were nothing of the sort. High Arbiter, Vrax began. I am not finished. Sylveth's voice was sharp. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained order by controlling younger species. We told ourselves it was for their own good. We told ourselves they needed our guidance. But the truth is simpler and uglier. We controlled them because we could. Because it was easier than treating them as equals. Because we were afraid of what they might become if we let them grow. He walked to the center of the chamber. Humanity has shown us what they can become. Not monsters. Not conquerors. Not the ravaging horde that General Vrax fears. They have 47,000 ships pointed at the Creth homeworld, and they have not fired a single shot. They want a seat at this table, not the destruction of everything we've built. And you believe them? The Sylvar representative's voice was skeptical. I believe they are intelligent enough to know that destroying the Council would create chaos that would hurt them as much as anyone. I believe they want stability and partnership, not war and domination. Sylveth paused. And I believe that if we refuse them, if we force them into a corner, we will discover that their patience has limits. We will discover what humanity is truly capable of when they have no other options. So what do you propose? Tethris asked. I propose that we accept their terms. All of them. Immediate ceasefire, return of occupied territories, full membership on the Council with equal voting rights. He raised a hand to silence the objections. I know this is difficult. I know it feels like surrender. But it is not surrender. It is recognition of reality. And if they betray us? Vrax demanded. If they use their new position to undermine us, to turn the younger species against us, to destroy everything we've built, then we will have lost nothing we weren't already losing. Sylveth gestured at the chamber around them. Look at us. 7 species have already broken ranks. More will follow. The Council is fracturing, General, and it will continue to fracture whether we accept the humans or not. The only question is whether we fracture into chaos or whether we manage the transition to something new. He turned to address the full Council. I call for a vote. Full acceptance of humanity's terms. Full membership on the Council of 12, which will become the Council of 13. A new era of partnership between older and younger species, not dominance and control. The chamber was silent. Then Ambassador Keth spoke. The Torani vote yes. The Meshi vote yes, came another voice. One by one, the representatives spoke. The Orath, the smaller species who had always been marginalized. Species who saw in humanity's rise an opportunity for their own advancement. Then the larger powers. The Silvar, calculating as always, voted yes, better to bend than to break. The Villani, after a long pause, voted yes as well. Finally, only General Vrax remained. The Kreth vote no, he said. His voice was hard and cold. We will not forget this humiliation. We will not forgive. And when the time comes, we will remind humanity why the galaxy learned to fear us. The vote is recorded, Sylveth said. 11-1 in favor. The motion passes. The Council will communicate our acceptance of humanity's terms immediately. He looked at the image of the human ships still floating around the Kreeth homeworld. And may whatever gods watch over us hope that we have made the right choice. The message reached Earth 6 hours later. Ambassador Vasquez read it twice. Then she called Admiral Chen. They accepted, she said. There was a long silence on the line. Everything? The Admiral repeated. Full ceasefire. All territories returned. Full Council membership. Elena leaned back in her chair. We won. We won. The Admiral's voice was strange, as if he couldn't quite believe it. After everything. We won. Not quite everything. General Vrax voted no. The Kreeth are not happy. The Kreeth can be unhappy all they want. They're not in a position to do anything about it. Not now. But they have long memories, Admiral. We should remember that. We will. There was a pause. Ambassador, what you did, walking out of those talks, gambling everything on their fear of what we could do. That took courage I'm not sure I have. It wasn't courage. It was desperation wrapped in confidence. Elena smiled tiredly. But they didn't need to know that. What happens now? Now we take our seat at the table. Now we start building alliances with the species who supported us. Now we become part of the galactic community, not as children to be guided, but as adults to be respected. And the Kreeth? The Kreeth will do what the Kreeth do. They'll glare and growl and wait for an opportunity. She paused. But they won't find one. Not if we're smart. Not if we stay strong. She ended the call and looked out at the stars. They had won. But Elena knew that winning a battle was not the same as winning a war. The Council had accepted them, but acceptance could be withdrawn. The younger species supported them, but support could fade. The Kreth hated them, and hatred could fester into something terrible. They had changed the galaxy today. Now they had to make sure the change was permanent, and that would take time. Years, decades, perhaps centuries. But humanity had proven something today. They had proven that they were patient. They had proven that they could plan and wait and sacrifice for the long term. They would do it again if they had to, because that was what humanity did. They survived. 3 weeks had passed since the Council's vote. 3 weeks of chaos and change, of frantic diplomacy and quiet preparation. Of a galaxy slowly coming to terms with the fact that everything it knew had shifted. The human ships had withdrawn from the Kreeth homeworld. They had done so slowly, methodically, making sure every sensor in the system recorded their departure. There was no rush, No urgency. They left because they chose to leave. Not because anyone had forced them. The message was clear. We came when we wanted, and we leave when we want. The Creeth had not recovered from the humiliation. General Vrax had returned to his homeworld in disgrace, his position on the council reduced to empty formality. The Dominion's military was in disarray, its leadership divided between those who wanted revenge and those who recognized that revenge was impossible. The other council species were adapting in their own ways. The Villani had quietly increased their diplomatic staff on Earth, their ambassadors studying humanity with the same careful attention they had once reserved for threats. The Torani had signed a trade agreement that would bring human technology to their worlds in exchange for rare minerals. The Meshi had requested cultural exchanges, their translucent bodies rippling with curiosity about these strange beings who had shattered the old order. And the Council itself had agreed to send a delegation to Earth, not a summons, not a demand, a request. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the entrance hall of the Geneva diplomatic complex, watching workers put the final touches on the preparations. The building had been chosen deliberately. It was the same complex that had been damaged in the Creth orbital strike 7 years ago. The walls had been rebuilt, but some of the scars remained visible. Cracks in the stonework, patches where the original material had been replaced. Subtle reminders of what had happened here. She wanted the Council to see those scars. She wanted them to remember. The delegation's ship has entered Earth orbit. Commander Okonkwo appeared at her side. They'll be landing in 30 minutes. Who's leading it? High Arbiter Sylveth himself. He's brought representatives from 6 other Council species. No Creeth. Efter. No Creeth. Of course no Creth. Vrax would rather eat glass than set foot on Earth. Elena straightened her uniform. Is everything ready? Ready as it's going to be. She nodded and walked to the window. The city of Geneva spread out below her, gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. 60,000 people had died here in the attack. The city had rebuilt itself, just as it had rebuilt itself after countless wars throughout human history. That was what humans did. They endured. They rebuilt. They moved forward. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the attack. The old woman had been 93 years old when the Creth weapons had fallen from the sky. She had refused to evacuate, saying she was too old to run. By some miracle, her apartment building had been just outside the blast radius. She had lived another 4 years after that, long enough to see her granddaughter become the ambassador who would change galactic history. Elena wished she could see this day. She wished a lot of people could see it. The Council shuttle landed precisely on time, touching down on the platform outside the complex with a grace that spoke of technology far beyond anything humanity had developed on its own. The hatch opened, and the delegation emerged into the Earth sunlight. High Arbiter Sylveth led the way. His blue-black carapace gleamed in the light, and his compound eyes reflected the buildings around him. Behind him came representatives of the Villani, the Torani, the Meshi, the Silvar, the Orath, and the Keleth species that had supported humanity's admission to the Council. Elena waited at the entrance as they approached. Protocol demanded that she meet them halfway, but she had decided to break protocol. This was Earth. They had come to her. Sylveth stopped in front of her. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Ambassador Vasquez, he said. His voice was formal, but Elena thought she detected something else beneath the formality. Weariness, perhaps, or acceptance. High Arbiter. She gave a small bow, the minimum required by diplomatic custom. Welcome to Earth. Thank you for receiving us. She led them into the complex, through halls that had been designed to impress visitors from other worlds. Human art lined the walls, paintings and sculptures, from every culture, every era, every continent. The message was clear. This species has depth. This species has history. This species is not what you thought. They entered the main conference room, a circular chamber with a high ceiling and wide windows that let in the afternoon light. Seats had been arranged around a central table, with humanity's chair equal in size and position to all the others. Once everyone was seated, Sylveth spoke. "The Council of 13, he began, has reconsidered its position." Elena kept her face neutral. "Go on. We offer full cessation of hostilities with the Creth Dominion, to be formalized in a treaty signed by all parties. We offer recognition of all human territorial claims, including the worlds that were occupied during the conflict. And we offer a permanent seat on the Council, with full voting rights and equal standing." "The Council of 13, then?" "Yes." Sylveth paused. "You have won, Ambassador. Surely you know that. You do not need me to say it." "No. But I think we both need to acknowledge what happened, and why." Elena leaned forward. "You could have offered this 3 weeks ago. We could have offered it years ago, when your first ambassador petitioned for membership. We refused because we believed younger species needed guidance. We told ourselves it was for your benefit." He made a sound that might have been a sigh. "We were wrong." Yes, you were. I have been the High Arbiter for 600 years. In all that time, I have never admitted error. I have never apologized. I have never questioned the fundamental assumptions of Council governance." His compound eyes met hers. "I am questioning them now." Elena studied him. She saw something she had not expected to see. Genuine regret. Not just political calculation. Not just tactical surrender. Something deeper. "Tell me," she said, "what do you see when you look at humanity now?" Sylveth was silent for a long moment. "I see a species that frightens me," he said finally. "Not your ships. Not your technology. Your patience. Your willingness to endure. You let us believe we had power over you. You let us think you were desperate and weak. And all along, you were building the means to prove us wrong. That frightens you? It terrifies me. Because I cannot predict what else you might be building. What other plans you have that will only become visible when you choose to reveal them." He spread his forearms in a gesture that might have meant helplessness. "I have spent centuries believing I understood how the galaxy works. You have shown me that I understood nothing." Elena considered her response carefully. This was a moment that would be recorded in history books. The words she chose now would shape how future generations understood this meeting. "High Arbiter," she said. "Let me tell you what I see. When I look at the Council, please, I see an institution that has maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. I see species who learned to work together despite their differences. I see a framework that, for all its flaws, has prevented the kind of total war that might have destroyed everyone." She paused. "I don't want to tear that down." "I never did." "Then what do you want?" "I want a seat at the table. Not because humanity wants to dominate the galaxy, but because we deserve to have a voice in our own future. We're not children. We're not primitives. We're a species that has earned the right to be heard. You have certainly earned that right." "Yes, but that's not enough anymore." Elena stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Geneva continued its daily life. Millions of people going about their business, unaware of the conversation happening in this room. We want more than just a seat. We want the Council to become what it has always claimed to be, a true partnership of equals. Not just humanity. All species. The Torani, who have been marginalized for millennia. The Meshi, who have been ignored. Everyone who has been told to sit down and be quiet while the powerful species made decisions for them. That is a significant change. It's the change that will save the Council. She turned to face him. "High Arbiter, the old way is dying. The Torani reached out to us because they were tired of being dismissed. The Meshi supported us because they wanted something better. A dozen other species are questioning why they should follow leaders who treated them as inferiors. And if the Council resists this change, then it will fracture. Not because of humanity, but because the younger species have finally realized they have options." Elena returned to her seat. You can lead this change, or you can be swept away by it. Those are your choices. Sylveth looked at the other members of his delegation. The Torani ambassador gave a small nod. The Villani representative's expression was unreadable, but she did not object. Even the Silvar, who had always been focused on their own advantage, seemed to accept the logic of what Elena was saying. What specifically do you propose? Sylveth asked. Reforms. Gradual but real. More voice for smaller species. Better representation on council committees. An end to the assumption that older means wiser. Elena paused. And a formal acknowledgement that the council made mistakes in how it treated humanity. Not just private recognition. A public statement. You want us to admit we were wrong. Publicly, I want the galaxy to know that the council is capable of recognizing its errors and correcting them. That's not weakness. That's strength. She met his eyes steadily. It's also the only way to rebuild trust with the species who have watched how you treated us. The chamber was silent. Elena could see the calculations happening in Sylveth's mind. The weighing of costs and benefits. The assessment of political risks. Finally, he spoke. The council, he said slowly, acknowledges that it erred in its treatment of humanity. We were blinded by our assumptions about younger species. We failed to recognize human capabilities, human wisdom, and human worth. This failure led to a war that cost millions of lives on both sides. He paused. We regret these failures. We commit to doing better. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. She had not realized how tightly she had been holding herself until that moment. Thank you, High Arbiter. Do not thank me yet. Words are easy. The real test will be whether the Council can change its actions to match its words. He stood. I am old, Ambassador. Older than any human has ever been. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched species reach for greatness and destroy themselves in the attempt. What have you learned from all those years? That the universe does not care about our plans. It does not reward the righteous or punish the wicked. It simply continues, indifferent to our hopes and fears. He moved toward her, his movements slow but deliberate. But I have also learned that sometimes, rarely, a species comes along that changes the rules. A species that refuses to accept the way things have always been. A species that looks at the universe's indifference and says, we will make our own meaning. He stopped in front of her. Humanity is such a species. You have changed the rules. You have forced us to reconsider everything we believed. And now, for better or worse, we must learn to share the galaxy with you. Elena extended her hand. Then let's learn together. Sylveth looked at her hand. He understood the gesture, humanity's symbol of trust and agreement. Slowly, carefully, he took it. You have a phrase, he said. New beginnings. We do. Then let this be a new beginning. For humanity, for the Council, for the galaxy. Elena smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had allowed herself since this all began. I'd like that. The treaty was signed that afternoon. It was not a perfect document. There were compromises, ambiguities, and carefully worded phrases that would need to be interpreted later. The Creeth had refused to participate, their ambassador sending a terse message that the Dominion did not recognize the legitimacy of the agreement. There would be problems in the future. There were always problems. But for now, for this moment, it was enough. Elena stood on the steps of the Geneva diplomatic complex as the council delegation departed. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Around her, the city continued its eternal rhythm. People coming and going, unaware that history had just been made. Okonkwo appeared at her side. It's done, he said. It's starting, she corrected. What happens now? Elena thought about all the work that lay ahead, building relationships with their new allies, managing the resentment of the Creth, navigating council politics, proving, day by day, that humanity deserved the place they had won. Now we show them who we really are, she said, Not just warriors, not just planners, partners, builders. A species that wants to make the galaxy better, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. That's a lot to live up to. It is. She turned to face him. But we've been living up to impossible standards our entire history. We've faced extinction and survived. We've faced hatred and overcome it. We've faced our own worst impulses and, slowly, painfully, learned to be better. You think we can do it? Elena looked up at the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the borders of their territory. Somewhere else, council representatives were reporting back to their governments about what they had seen on Earth. Somewhere beyond all of that, the universe continued in its vast indifference, waiting to see what humanity would do with the opportunity they had won. I think we have to try, she said. Because that's what humanity does. We try. We fail. We try again. We keep going until we succeed, or until there's nothing left. She smiled. And we don't give up. Ever. Okonkwo nodded slowly. I can live with that. Good. She started walking back toward the complex. Because we have a lot of work to do. The council session is next month, and we need to be ready. We need proposals for the reforms we discussed. We need to coordinate with the Torani and Meshi and everyone else who supported us. We need to build something that will last. End quote. You don't rest, do you? Rest is for people who don't have a galaxy to reshape. She glanced back at him. Coming? He laughed and followed her inside. The doors closed behind them, and the complex returned to its usual quiet. But outside, in the growing darkness, the stars continued to shine, billions of them, scattered across the infinite void, waiting for the species brave enough to reach for them. Humanity had reached, humanity had grasped, and now, humanity would build, because that was what they had always done. From the first cave paintings to the first cities, from the first ships to the first starships, humanity had looked at the darkness and said, "We will make light." They would say it again, and again, and again, until the darkness itself learned to fear them, until the stars themselves knew their name. This was not an ending. This was the beginning of everything.